This is about crushed dreams, personal financial collapse, enormous guilt and regret, and a hope that you may avoid the overwhelming dismay this unsuspecting homebuyer barely endured. This is a true story, and a bit abridged due to time and memory lapse, but I trust that you will be more vigilant about your own due diligence, despite the lack of some details. When I answered the phone, I was speaking with a real estate agent who I had met when she was the listing agent for a house that my clients were purchasing. Her voice was audibly distraught about a dire predicament that she was in. She called me because she said that she had never seen an inspection company like ours before, and she was very impressed. She said she desperately needed someone qualified, more qualified than the home inspector she had hired when she purchased her dream home. She had purchased this home with her aging husband, with dreams of fixing it up and living out the rest of their lives in this nice little house in a wooded neighborhood on a cul-de-sac in Longwood, Florida. She said her inspector was the senior inspector and even had a trainee with him when he performed a full pre-purchase home inspection for her. She trusted him and his work, and why not? He was the standard from which she had grown accustomed. The inspection took a little less than 2 hours and revealed no major issues. Essentially the green light she and her husband had yearned for. After closing, they immediately began to move in and make this house their forever home. She recalled to me an odd smell that was quite apparent the first day. They attempted to shrug it off as a cleanliness issue that would be remedied once they were in full swing with the cleaning and painting and flooring and all the other fun things you do when you buy a house. When the smell didn't subside, they began to look closer. They found that the air conditioner coils were moldy, and when you're 75 plus years old, they knew their immune system wasn't what it used to be, so they called the air conditioner contractor to clean the coils. Besides the poor hygienic condition the system was in, the contractor found other things. Expensive things. Since their work ethic was stronger than their limited income, they trudged on. When the handyman arrived to tackle the honey-do list, she said he expressed concerns about some of the damages. These were big jobs, not little jobs. In fact, the front balcony would need structural repairs that would require an architect or engineer and a contractor. With fears mounting, they inspected more, probed more, and inquired from more learned individuals. They soon realized they were in a very large conundrum. Her husband's health experienced complications, and it seemed he could not adapt to the new environment. She described the pain it caused both of them to move back out and back into the house that they had moved from and were hoping to sell. She went on to describe other issues that I don't even remember at this point, and implored me to help her quantify her crisis. Within a few days, I pulled up in front of a visible catastrophe. This was a 1980s vintage wood frame home in a heavily wooded neighborhood. Can you see what's coming? First shocker was the brand new roofing material on the rotted decking at the balcony in front of the house. This handyman was correct. This was a pig with lipstick. I found heavily damaged wood to the band beam, toenailed handrail and balusters, plus the lack of proper flashing between the house and the balcony. Water-damaged wood was in no short supply around this house. The more I probed, the more I found. I also found many random pest damages. The extent of all these damages, however, could not be known without further destructive investigation. Lesson here: it has never been code to funnel water behind a veneer despite the 1980s construction. Especially on wood frame home, for God's sakes. I knew this would not be good. Indeed, it wasn't. Besides a roof of advanced age and a very limited life, the attic reeked of urine, rats and mice, feces throughout. The rodents had made Swiss cheese out of the ductwork, hence the smell that just couldn't be eradicated. They had also chewed wiring in the attic. Tears were now present in her face as I continued to inspect and report. The overwhelming emotions were not the sole result of the house discoveries, but she began telling me stories of her husband. Restricted movements, memory loss, kidney problems, internal hemorrhaging, and it went on and on. Some things I really didn't understand and I really didn't want to hear. An FPE panel offered no ease, but only fueled the fire on a very dark day. FPE panels are known for their defective breakers and have decades of ill-fated history. Surely the home inspection report documented these issues. Mine did. But the former senior inspector's report, so vague, pretty much only acknowledged that a house did indeed exist. So did an electrical panel, so did an AC system. Not much more useful information. Though neither one of us was performing a WDO report, at least I don't remember if he did one, but if he did, it really held no value. I could not help but notice multiple signs of rodent activity. In the downstairs bathroom, I remember the walls being wet, not just behind the tile, but behind the toilet, under the sink, and beside the shower. I remember sneaking a peek behind the wallpaper in an area where it was already peeling off. Heavy fungal growth. The type and extent of the growth is obviously unknown, but after 5.5 hours of inspecting and documenting all that I could for this lady, I printed my report and pictures. The delivery was painful and arduous. Most of the information was novel and contrarian to the previous report. The data was saturated with dark and sullen news. Her demeanor, somber, overcast, and demoralized. How could I remember all this stuff years later when I can't even remember dinner last night? Some houses you just remember, especially when anchored by the dejected emotion and demure behavior of someone old enough to be my mother and gray enough to be my grandmother, who looks on me like a puppy dog grasping for a tender of help. I felt, and I still feel deeply for this lady. I have not heard from her in quite a while, and if she's still out there, I pray for her peace. Over time, we had developed a peculiar kind of friendship. One, because I was curious and interested in what happened next, and two, because she needed me to listen. She kept me informed on how things progressed, rather digressed. I visited the house once more, prompted by her grave description of what they had found when they started opening up the walls. Granted, these things were concealed and no inspector could have predicted what was to be uncovered. However, my inspection stated that destructive investigation was required because of all the outward signs I identified and some educated hypothesis of what might be lurking. Massive and broad-scale termite damages, structural concerns and technical failures, mold, rats, and roaches, the kind of environment you don't enter unprotected. The scene in all was ghastly. Though mortgage companies had been contacted and debriefed, they offered little remedy. An attorney was apparently involved, but I don't know or remember what happened there. Her husband's health continued to decline and he contracted hantavirus. I had never heard of it before at that time, but it apparently came from the exposure to all the rodent feces and urine and the odor. It sounds weird, but I wish I had offered a shoulder. I heard from my friend just one more time. The love of her life had passed, and the house that consumed their hopes, dreams, and life savings was gone. It was officially condemned by the building department and deemed unsafe for occupancy. I sincerely hope that you take this information and use it to protect yourself, your investing career, and your mental and physical health. Please realize the incredible value in hiring a professional home inspector. Remember that inspectors will come with varying degrees of experiences, qualifications, and dissimilar toolboxes. Do your due diligence before you do your due diligence. Saving $100 could cost you $175,000. This is a true story.